In some ways, this list has been easier to create than the list I created for Fire Emblem Three Houses oh so many years ago. The sheer amount of details to sift through for Three Houses cast made it a daunting task. In other ways though, Engage has been harder. I played through Three Houses 4 times before making that list, whereas for Engage I have done one and then watched friends playing through a couple times as well. Engage is also just not set up for collecting as many supports, and don't get me started on trying to see all the wake-up events and bond conversations on top of that. This is why Collector Togami, along with others, does invaluable work for the community. After a good deal of time though, I finally feel ready to take on this video, but before I get started, let's set the ground rules. Number 1. This list is purely my opinion. I may talk about some objective aspects such as a character's utility as a unit in battle, but the vast majority of what makes up my ranking is from my own preferences when it comes to characters. There will be characters you adore who don't make this list, and maybe some you can't stand who do. I also am not saying the characters who don't make the list are in any ways bad. I really enjoyed Engage's cast, which of course made this task harder. These are just the 10 that spoke to me the most. Number 2, I am not including anyone from the Engage DLC since I didn't get it / play it. Number 3, I'm refraining from talking about any of the S supports with Alear for the characters. While there are nice moments in there, I think the main supports cover everything important. Lastly, this video will contain spoilers for all of Engage. Do not watch if you don't wish to be spoiled. With all that cleared up, it is time to get our list started with... One of my favorite character tropes is a character who is, by all accounts, cool. They have a badass design, an incredible voice, a forceful personality, and a long list of accomplishments that back up their exterior. Then, on top of all that, you add in that they are an absolute dork when presented with the right opportunity to express their interests. One of my favorite examples of this character type is Aizen from Tales of Berseria, but Engage has a great example as well, with the Wolf Knight Merrin. Merrin has 2 main characteristics about her that stand out in most of her supports. 1 is her coolness, and 2 is her obsession with dragons. Some Fire Emblem characters with only 1 or 2 predominant focuses can lead to many one-note supports that don't reveal much about the participants, but Merrin manages to avoid that trap. Starting with the support with our main character, Alear. Her constant observing of Alear makes them uncomfortable at first, which is a common thread for Alear that they don't like being treated differently because of their status. It's Merrin's reaction though that reveals her consideration and care for people as she immediately apologizes and even waves off Alear's attempt to downplay their initial discomfort. She is very much obsessed with dragons, but she also has self-control and the grace to recognize if something she did was wrong. That reaction though is what convinces Alear of Merrin's good intentions and leads to them reaching an understanding and appreciation of each other's special qualities. Her interest in dragons also serves to help Veyle in coming to terms with her status as a fell dragon. Merrin is interested in Veyle for her unique status as a dragon and because of who Veyle is as a person. She offers words of comfort to the girl who just wanted friends and spent many years being told she was broken and hated for who she was. Merrin's kindness is paramount to her character. Then we have Merrin's focus on coolness and how she is perceived by others, which I think connects to her keen observation skills as well. Those who are meticulous about how they present themselves are usually also perceptive of others around them as well. Merrin and Chloe highlight this in their supports, where Chloe loves Merrin's cool demeanor and knight-like qualities, which makes Merrin worry about upholding them. Chloe, though, helps Merrin relax and understand that she may not be perfect, but she is a true knight. She doesn't have to hide her critter craze like she does initially with Citrine to be cool. She doesn't need to prove coolness is better than cuteness like she does with Rosado. Merrin learns to accept her own nature just as readily as she does her allies. Even when she has a disagreement like with Yunaka, they are able to eventually come to an understanding and appreciation that even if they don't agree on this one point, they have far more in common than not. The last part of Merrin's character that stands out to me is her relationship with Tamara. Merrin left her village since they were forcing her to become the next village matriarch. Then she ran into Tamara and became her retainer, fulfilling her lifelong dream of becoming a knight. Tamara and Merrin's mutual trust and belief in each other is a key aspect of why Merrin fights so hard and is why she is so protective of Tamara as well. She stands in the way of Kagetsu trying to duel Tamara because she has to ensure that no harm comes to Tamara. Merrin's even conscious, along with Panette, of how her singing reflects on Tamara. A little much to worry about? Sure, but that's just part of what makes Merrin a delightful character and about the best retainer a royal could ask for. On the combat side of things, Merrin didn't actually make my main team for my playthrough of Engage. I was focused on using Yunaka as my main dagger unit, but there is no doubt that Merrin is a solid unit. Her starting class of Wolf Rider is a fantastic class with the added movement bonus, plus the class plays to Merrin's initial strengths of dexterity and speed. Strength can be an issue at times, but her base strength is pretty good to begin with, and even if she doesn't get good strength gains, she'll be invaluable taking out mages, archers, or other dagger users. She's a solid choice for any army, and my 10th favorite character in Fire Emblem Engage. This next character is an example of why it's good I researched the characters and poured through supports before making this video, because he was firmly on the bench my entire playthrough. I had heard good things from those that had used him, and if I do another playthrough in the future, there's little doubt that Kagetsu would join the team. Kagetsu reminds me in some ways of one of my favorite Tellius characters, Mia, a cheerful sword user who enjoys testing their limits. Beyond that though, Kagetsu also has a relentless desire to connect with people, usually declaring eternal bonds and everlasting friendship within the first conversation. Then we have his background as the wayward prince of an isolated kingdom, plus his special talent for precise predictions about mundane things. Add all of that together, and you have a fun and intriguing character with a plethora of traits for compelling support. A great backstory, as Jade notes when using him as an inspiration for her next character. Kagetsu is sort of an odd fit within the Illusian crowd, and not just because he's originally from a place closer to Solm. As Ivy notes in her support with Kagetsu when she grew up, everyone was scheming, and that's what threw her off about Kagetsu. As he says, "I'm much too simple for schemes." He is exactly as he seems, and that is something valuable for characters like Ivy who have major trust issues to have in a friend. Kagetsu can bond with any number of people over many different things. He bonds with Celine over royal duties and tea, with Fram over family, with Seadoll over fortune and predictions. However, Kagetsu's desire to make friends means he can be insecure about whether people like him, as discussed in his supports with Ivy and Zelkov, especially because Ivy didn't pick him as a retainer. King Hyacinth did. I think that's a compelling part of his character, is his sensitivity to the people around him. He's not always right, but he's always trying to do right. He is ready to help his friends at the drop of the hat, even if in Fram's case she may have wished he didn't hear about her problems. Ultimately though, Kagetsu just loves to work and duel. Although he is focused on doing it honorably and won't take advantage of a tired or wounded opponent, during his supports, Kagetsu challenges to duel Boucheron, Celine, Diamant, Jade, Zelkov, Merrin, and tries to challenge Tamara as well. He is shown to be very strong, able to compete with all of the aforementioned characters, and he is persistent in his efforts to fight the best warriors because that's his best way to connect and improve. They say put your best foot forward, and that's what Kagetsu is trying to do with his fighting and friendly attitude. When it comes to battle, I can't speak from personal experience since, as you may recall, I didn't use Kagetsu, but he still seems like a good unit from looking at the stats. He is the first pre-promote you get in Engage after Vander, and if you keep him in that class, his speed and luck will be fantastic. On top of that, Kagetsu's strength is nothing to sniff at. He may end up lower than Diamant in that department, but he'll usually outpace Lapis, and his speed will keep him doubling enemies for quite a while. His build is actually the same as Diamant's as well, so you can wield some heavy weapons with him for that added damage if you desire. Kagetsu blends a fun character with a lot of depth with great use on the battlefield, not even accounting for class changes. The fact that he's only 9th on this list says something about the quality of Engage's cast. For number 8, we have the first of the royals on the list, the one with the best possible introduction, the one and only Fogado! Seriously, that smile and voice is enough to get me to trust this guy with my life and all my possessions. Like Kagetsu, Fogado is a very cheerful person who really tries to bond with everyone and anyone. He simply likes people and people like him just as much. On top of that, while he may seem laid back and carefree, he works just as hard as everyone else and uses his charisma and charm to connect with people and learn a lot about what is going on within Solm and elsewhere. Fogado is undoubtedly a person you want on your side for his abilities, whether that's in gathering intelligence or throwing a party. One of the things that strikes me the most about Fogado is about how kind he is, especially with people who lack his confidence and sociability. We see that in his supports with Clan and Alcryst, that he acknowledges them as wonderful people just as they admire him and can back it up with details. He is also unflinching in his efforts to connect with people even if they may be concerned with his reputation. He is savvy enough to connect with Celine on both a personal and political level. His good nature and honest desire to work for the betterment of the whole community allows him to overcome Hortensia's initial mistrust. He helps Yunaka to come out and show more trust in people without overly pressuring her. Fogado is simply out there trying to help everyone, but then we also get to see when that persona he puts on gets a little much. With Alir and Pandreo, we see the amount of work he has to put in to maintain his physical condition and his worries about how the war is proceeding. He's not immune to the pressure his position places on him and doesn't want to have to rely on other people, but Alir and Pandreo are able to overcome that barrier and show he doesn't have to do everything alone. His tendency to work really hard and do things on his own also means that while he is trying to help Tamara when she becomes queen, by doing so, he wasn't spending time with her as her beloved sibling. That's the major change Fogado goes through and supports, is reconnecting with Tamara and trusting a select few others to help him through his toughest moments. Then he can get back to showing Alcryst what a great guy he is, or working with Lapis in order to protect people. Fogado is always helping others through whatever means he can. Usually banter. When it comes to battle, Fogado was part of my main team, but Alcryst actually managed to outstrength him, so I found another unexpected use for Fogado. See, his magic growth is surprisingly good, so by giving him the Radiant Bow, he could down armored enemies like no one's business. Apart from my personal experience, Fogado is a speedy unit with an okay strength growth and good dexterity and res. Apart from build, Fogado's lowest growth is a still decent 25% even without class modifier, so he's got a good chance to get strong growth. I'm not sure that he outpaces Alcryst for the best archer at base, but he does come with a horse, and that is always a strong bonus in a unit's favor. I found some good uses for Fogado, and it's always helpful to have a capable archer around and one who is the life of the party. Like Fogado, our number 7 entry has a very memorable introduction, but not nearly in the same way, because her introduction gives the exact opposite impression of who this character actually is. Ivy comes swooping in on her big, intimidating wyvern, politely introduces herself and gives a chilling line before the battle. Now, we knew she was coming to our side eventually, but little did we know that she would be a whole new, even better Ivy when she finally revealed her true colors. Why does she act so differently to start? I think the answer to that lies in the support I mentioned earlier between Kagetsu and Ivy when she talks about growing up in an environment where intrigue and backstabbing ran rampant. Ivy needed to adapt by adopting a different persona from how she usually is, and now that she's out of Illusia, she can embrace her full personality. However, she is understandably reserved about that in addition to her general reservedness to begin with. Another reason for her to hide who she really is within Illusia is her worship of the Divine Dragon rather than the Fell One, as she states in her support with Alir. Alir and her worship of them was Ivy's primary escape from the constant threats of the Illusian court, so she's understandably nervous interacting with Alir. On top of that, she's also nervous around characters who don't have a duplicitous bone in their body like Kagetsu or Alfred because it's not something she can fathom. Ivy though recognizes that not all are going to as easily forgive her or trust her, which allows her to treat the royals of former enemies such as Alfred and Diamant with such consideration. Her honest attempts to apologize and make up for past actions even wins over Alcryst pretty soon into their support chain, and then there's her support with Veyle. Ivy recognizes exactly where Veyle is coming from with her guilt over Hyacinth's madness and death, and tries to move her past the guilt. Ivy and Veyle acknowledge their similarities and then commit to striving to do better and make a world where people are not burdened as they are. Ivy has her lighter moments such as teasing Alcryst or her wonderful sister bond with Hortensia, but she is a supremely capable and thoughtful woman on top of that when dealing with serious moments. Then we have her fear of ghosts, an aspect of Ivy's character that in some ways shows her remaining childishness in spite of her calm and collected demeanor. I would liken it to Edelgar's childish moments in Three Houses really helping to humanize her. Beyond being great comedic moments, Ivy is shown taking steps to overcome her fears bit by bit with Tamara and Panette. It's a process though, and seeing Ivy accept the kindness of others is important in her steps to learning how to trust people. She would still prefer not to go camping though. Ivy, as a flying unit, already has a distinct advantage, and her class allows her to use magic and healing, which increases her support value on top of the magic offense. In all stats except strength and luck, Ivy has solid bases, with magic, dexterity, and res as her highest. None of her growths on their own are that amazing, with her highest being speed, which she'll need since Celine and Clan will likely outspeed her quickly without some RNG luck. I see her as an alright unit based on growths and bases, but it's her Wyvern that increases her utility. I could be wrong though, and she was still fun to use when I played. A lot of the characters in Engage are very self-conscious about various things. Just in this list so far, Merrin is self-conscious about her coolness, Kagetsu about his past and how much people like him, Fogado about maintaining his carefree image for people, and Ivy for making up for her past actions. This trend isn't going to end with our next character, Lapis. In fact, she's part of a trio of perhaps the most self-conscious members of the entire cast. Lapis grew up very poor on a farm in Brodia. That background made her extremely resourceful, seen in her supports where she's constantly creating amazing contraptions, and then again in her meals and food choices. She also became very strong, managing to become a talented bear fighter and eventually winning a tournament to get the position of Alcryst retainer. Since I didn't use her much, I mostly knew her from the eating weeds memes, but there's so much beyond that. I'm very glad one of my friends who was streaming the game absolutely loved her, and that's what led me to appreciate her as well. Unsurprisingly, as someone from a poor and ignoble background, she is very self-conscious and tries to hide her past, even amongst her closest allies. She lied about her entire background to Citrine when they first met, and only came clean later on in their supports. She also, ineffectively, tries to pass off her plant knowledge with Celine as something her friends taught her, and uses her support with Rosado to try and get confidence about her origins. It's noted in other supports, but this aspect of her character, while important, is not what struck me most about Lapis. What was most striking was this: she is always helping. Sometimes she needs a confidence boost to remind her of how valuable she is to people, as we see in Alir's C support with her, or throughout Alcryst support. Whenever someone comes to Lapis for help though, she helps without question with great skill and consideration of who she is helping. Fram's bear problem? Lapis is there to not only take it down, but also encourage Fram after she's not right there helping. Lapis builds Etier, her muscle machine, just with spare parts lying around. She is able to help Celine with identifying useful plants that, as Celine notes, could have an incredible impact to help the people of Firene. She builds Alcryst and his confidence up as much as he does hers. She trains with Citrine as they note how perfectly suited they are as a pair, complementing what the other lacks. She helps Goldmary with the bears at the spas, assists Fogado in creating a machine to help take out the bandits, and creates a very cute snowman for Anna to practice selling. All of this is possible because of her resourcefulness, but also her perceptiveness of what people's intentions and best qualities are, such as her ability to highlight Alcryst's great traits, Boucheron's general himbo nature, or Citrine's strengths. Lapis as a unit, though, is unfortunately not as strong as her character profile would make you think. Not that I discourage people from using her, but compared to Kagetsu and Diamant, Lapis has some notable weaknesses. Lapis is very speedy, and her growth plus class growth makes dexterity decent as well. The base 12 strength isn't bad either, but her growth is lower than every other sword-wielding character, including Celine. None of this is going to stop me from using her in the future, but those playing the higher difficulties probably shouldn't bother. Maybe if the party fought more bears, she'd be better, but at least she has a great personality to fall back on. Guile and pragmatism is not a strong trait amongst the engaged cast. Unlike for Three Houses, the political games between nations and powerful organizations like the Church don't take center stage in Helios. That doesn't mean there aren't some politically charged supports and savvy individuals, and I would argue that Celine is one of the savviest in the entire cast. Her general warmth and continuous offers of tea time with almost everyone may give people a certain impression, but she will do anything to protect Faraday and its people. She can be honestly ruthless at times, and I think this blend of traits is what drew me to her as a character. Let's start though with the big part of her character, the underlying motivator behind so many of her actions and future, and that's Alfred's disease. Early in life, Alfred was a sickly child, and Celine always had to worry then, and still worries now, about his future. While he is stronger now and seemingly healthy, in their A support, Alfred reveals to Celine that he is still sick. What goes unsaid is that the person then who would be expected to take over as either ruler or heir would be Celine herself, which indeed does happen, unless Alfred pairs with Alir. That constant worry is why Celine feels she has to learn all the politics as well and is implied to be the reason for her tea obsession. When not dealing with political rivals though, Celine's warmth and kindness shines through. She's interested in people and making their lives better no matter their station. She's concerned about Etienne when she notices her hand shaking, even if the reason why is because she was using a special weighted teacup. She chides Louis for going too far for her tea to the point of putting himself in danger. She is very supportive of Jean's studying habits as he tries to become a doctor. Then finally we have her endeavor to help Mavier find a particular location within Faraday, and when he eventually decides that the memories are what's most important, Celine agrees and still insists on helping him find it so they can make new treasured memories there. Celine can very much handle herself. She'll accept support and help when needed, but it's clear that she is more capable on her own than the average royal, seen with her habit of sneaking out of the castle incognito with very few issues. One of those few occasions that she did need help leading her to Chloe, who came to her rescue and took her on a wild Pegasus riding tea drinking ride. We also see how Kagetsu reacts to Celine, and his desire to take on the best warriors extends to her, and rightly so, although she declines and then gives him a lesson right back on responsibility of royalty and why she works as hard as she does. One of her last lines, though, is the most telling. If you ever tried to harm Faraday, you would find me to be a terrible and merciless opponent. This is not mere boasting. She does exactly that in her support with Alir, cleverly planning out an operation that takes down a gang of thieves terrorizing Faraday. She remarks to Alir that as merciless as her actions were in signing their death warrants, she did not feel anguish at her decisions. She derives no satisfaction, but nothing will dissuade her from taking on the problems that she deems most important. Celine's most revealing supports, though, come with two of her fellow younger royals. The Hortensia's support has some cute moments, but it's not really revelatory. Starting with Fogado. Fogado tries his usual charming way of engaging with Celine around tea, which she politely and firmly rebuffs. She only then reconsiders and accepts the request after Fogado shows political insight into Faraday and their characteristics. This interaction helps Celine realize how similar they are. Sure, they have different tactics and methods, but their goals and determination are the same. We both dearly love our siblings as we love our nations, and to protect what we love, we'd be willing to do the unthinkable. They have a strong mutual understanding and respect by the end of their support, and it's really great to see. If you noticed before, Celine is always prepared to help, perhaps because it keeps her mind off of her own worries, which we can see plainly in her support with Alcryst. Side note, this may be my favorite engaged support, period. Unable to sleep, she runs into Alcryst and they bond over their mutual fear of losing their older brothers and how they would be prepared to possibly step up if that ever did happen. They then pledge to not only continue to help each other as they have been with their late night conversations, but also serve to help protect Alfred and Diamant respectively. This alliance, I think, is all the more important to help both Celine and Alcryst stand up and continue on their path. As for Celine as a unit, she is a unique type of unit due to her combined sword and magic use, pretty much emulating her initial emblem ring occupant Celica in that manner. Her noble class plus base growth rates gives her a very balanced set of growths on top of her pretty balanced bases. With two exceptions on each, her base defense is pretty low and her luck growth is outstanding. Any skill involving luck as a trigger will make Celine a more potent unit. Overall though, her growths are good enough to overcome a lot of units with stronger bases or simply specialties in certain areas. She's not as strong as Kagetsu or Diamant on the sword side, and her magic growth will keep her from matching Citrine or Fram. Heck, even Chloe has a higher magic growth than Celine. I enjoyed using Celine in my playthrough, but apart from her excellent proficiency with the Levin sword, her use was sporadic due to her not excelling in any area. It's too bad that Engage doesn't have authority, because Celine would be excellent with gambits. There's a reason I ended the Celine support section talking about the support that I did, because it leads me right into why Alcryst is such a great character himself. For me, that starts with what Lapis highlights in their A support. Alcryst is so perceptive and empathetic. His inferiority complex makes him hyper-aware of the amazing traits of those around him, and he uses that knowledge to build up the confidence of those people. He's such a sweet person that he never takes his own feelings of inadequacy out on any other people. Sure, we'd love if he gained confidence in the amazing man that he is as well, but he's got plenty of people trying to encourage him on that front. As the younger brother of someone as accomplished and gorgeous, that's not what I meant to say, I mean gorgeous as Diamant, it stands to reason that Alcryst would feel inadequate in his shadow. This lack of confidence runs throughout all of his life and supports to the point that he apologizes to people for his mere existence. This isn't the same as Bernadetta's confidence issues in Three Houses, because Alcryst is still a decently social person. He just constantly worries that people don't want him around, and that's why he leaves at times. His supports usually are associated with his confidence and strength, or lack thereof. His supports with Alir and Saphir reveal that Alcryst is more talented and accomplished than he may think at dealing with wolves, fishing, and cooking. Heck, Alcryst is also a good partier when he lets go of his inhibitions and just goes with the flow. This isn't a one-way street though, because Alcryst is always trying to help people in turn when given the chance. He wants to protect everyone, but especially his retainers Citrine and Lapis and his brother Diamant. That desire to protect them is what brings him to the final agreement with Celine about protecting Alfred alongside Diamant. He is able to assuage Lapis and Citrine's doubts about their roles as retainers in a way only Alcryst could do. By speaking from his own experience and his observation skills, he is able to help people through their own doubts. Alcryst is also always looking to improve and works hard to do so, as we see with his training alongside Diamant and his other more unconventional training ideas. Alcryst is good at identifying potential teachers, starting with Boucheron for his physical strength and confidence, and Hortensia for strictly confidence. Boucheron is the ultimate supportive teacher who helps build Alcryst up physically and mentally while exposing his own vulnerabilities in turn. Hortensia, on the other hand, tries the exact opposite approach, which completely fails when Alcryst backs down as easy as air, so she tries a new approach, and when that fails, she has to do some thinking. What she arrives at is what we all know about Alcryst. He may be a bit of a downer, but he's still got great qualities and doesn't need to change anything. He just needs to be given the recognition the Brodian nobles never gave him. No wonder Hortensia gets flustered when Alcryst actually starts making eye contact. Then we have Fogado and Ivy. Fogado just seems to genuinely like Alcryst, and his relentless positivity even eventually gets through to Alcryst. Ivy is an interesting support though, that shows how Alcryst's ability to empathize is so great he can even empathize with someone like Ivy, the feared Aleutian princess whose country killed his father. Alcryst wants to make things better once Ivy shows that she's really trying to make up for her actions. It takes a lot of maturity to take steps forward to making personal connections over the frosty relationships between their countries. As a unit, Alcryst is most useful because he can learn Luna. Seriously, that one skill makes him so valuable, especially in the later part of the game. His dexterity and speed are very good, and he's got decent strength and defense on top of that, so he'll be a more than worthwhile archer to train up. He is a well-balanced middle ground between Etier's strength emphasis and Fogado's great speed and resistance. Alcryst is worth some investment if you're looking for a solid unit you can get early on that can carry on into the late game. Unlike for every previous character on this list, I feel I have to focus on the actual story content of our number 3 character because that's where their most important development happens. For much of the game, Veyle is not one of our allies. She's not always against us, but sometimes she is as she fights through Sombron's influence. Her initial mystery, seeming reveal, and then plight that eventually leads her to our side is a compelling arc. Outside of supports, I think Veyle has the most compelling storyline of any engaged character, and she's a linchpin for how the story works. That alone makes her character notable, but then, once she was recruited, we needed follow-up that would confirm what a great character she is, and her supports do exactly that. Much like Ivy, Veyle has strong feelings of remorse for the actions of her evil side. In a good number of her supports, Veyle is focused on finding ways to atone and help people while worrying that people won't accept her help even when offered. That fear isn't unfounded, as Hortensia dismisses Veyle immediately when she offers friendship, and it takes some time and some revelations of Veyle's own sad backstory to get her to reconsider and give Veyle a chance. Ivy tries to distract and push past Veyle's feelings of guilt, although she comes to the realization that she and Veyle are very similar in their quest for atonement and resolves instead to work together to help others. Diamant, the mature one that he is, realizes that in the very first conversation and immediately works together with Veyle not to help himself, but to help his people instead. After the extremely funny C support with Alfred, we also see how he plans to help Veyle by supporting and vouching for her as she tries to help people. Veyle adopts a similar attitude when working with Mavier to help people in their A support, and then talking about their fortune of having their friendship and breaking Sombron's control as made possible by Marnie. That unreserved support will certainly help Veyle and the people come to grips with Veyle. Some of Veyle's supports, though, involve her dealing with the past and her status as a fell dragon. Merrin helps Veyle come to terms with being a fell dragon and gain appreciation for her dragon status in general. Pandrea reaches out as the first of many to offer gifts, true gifts, to Veyle, the sort of love that Veyle never thought possible in Elusia. However, it can be done to excess, as seen with Citrine when she offers expensive, lavish gifts that remind Veyle negatively of the offerings that she was given with expectation of return of fortune. Veyle can't change her past and the terrible things she was subjected to, as she tells Hortensia, but now she has a much more supportive group around her, starting with Alir, her sibling whose supports with Veyle are about how they've helped each other in the past, how their father is hurting the present, and how they will fight together to defeat him and bring about a brighter future together. It is very sweet after all the events prior to this to see Veyle and Alir bonding. That's also an important part of Veyle's character, is having some lighter moments where we see her love for spicier food, her fears and overcoming them with Tamara, her cat imitation and the support with Seedal, her pickle making with Clan. We get to see a Veyle truly at peace and know that she can continue to do so after our final victory. Veyle as a unit is an unusual case because she arrives so late in the game, but she's nowhere near overpowered or anything like that. Her resistance and magic are good with okay dexterity, speed, and strength on top of that. She comes with her own unique class, the Fell Child, which makes her magic and resistance growths even better. If you're taking your time and really training Veyle up, she will become a magic god. However, with limited chapters left, she is an okay unit in the endgame portion of Engage, especially with upgraded unique dagger and tome. But it's likely that mages you've trained up previously will have surpassed her. I still love her regardless of her utility as a unit because of how important she is to the story and Alir. And what a sweetheart she is. Our runner-up for my favorite Engage character is likely not a surprise to anyone who was paying attention through some of my other character supports talks, but can you blame me? Diamant is an absolute gem of a character, and it's not hard to see why the Brodian people feel so secure with him in line as their next ruler. He exemplifies the compassionate, strong, kind, and dedicated person you would want as the leader of a country. Diamant is a truly admirable person, both in his disposition and actions, and one of the things that strikes me in his supports is his willingness to be humble. Not that he would be a braggart, that's not in his nature, but when people find out he is not the flawless man many take him as, his reaction isn't denying it, it's showcasing his vulnerability and continuing on anyways. With Alir, after seeing Alir's fear, Diamant turns around in the B support and reveals his own self-doubt. His uncertainty that he has been a good leader and therefore will be one once the war is over, and he'll need to assume the throne. That mutual sharing of burdens is an important factor in Diamant's supports and brings him closer to Alir and especially the other older nobles. With Alfred, it's their training and worries about preserving peace, especially from his own country, as Diamant is not blind to Brodia's culture and the faults that come inherent with a militaristic emphasis. With Ivy, the simple kindness Diamant showed her in the first support transitions into a discussion of how the two nations of Brodia and Elusia and their fraught history can continue on. Ivy and Diamant are then able to bond about their feelings of unreadiness before resolving in the A support with the idea of what a peaceful future and relationship between their nations could look like. As for Tamara, she reveals an area of training that Diamant had overlooked, actually going out and interacting with the people of the land. To Diamant's credit, he is immediately on board with doing that and helping out however he can, even if the singing part makes him uncomfortable. That's not to say he's not thinking about the good of the people, as that's immediately his thought when Veyle asks him what she can do for him. Diamant recognizes Veyle's need for something helpful to do and works with her to put on something good for more than just him while assuaging Veyle's feelings. He may not seem the most diplomatic of people, but Diamant gets by talking with future rulers simply by being compassionate, vulnerable at times, and honest. His most important act of kindness, though, is in his support with Alcryst, where he is able to build up Alcryst's confidence through consistent positive reinforcement coupled with letting Alcryst see him at a low point. Diamant inspires people to do their best, and you can see how Alcryst takes Diamant's trust in him and uses it to push forward in spite of his own insecurities and fears. His retainers hold him in a similar high regard, with Amber giving him the highest possible praise that Amber could give someone, and Jade's constant desire to protect and help him. Diamant doesn't just take in those cases, but gives back as seen with his efforts to help Jade break her writing slump. Then we have Saphir. Despite having quite a few years on Diamant, his wisdom in helping her recognize the value of her work and the necessity of it helps Saphir. She is worried about her hands only knowing violence, and Diamant gives her hope of moving past that, and why shouldn't he give that hope? We've seen through his support that he is not just talking the talk about a peaceful new path for Brodia, he's taking steps to make peace a priority as well. He works with Celine to persuade the nobles as to his new path, and while diplomacy isn't Diamant's greatest interest or forte, when his initial efforts through Celine make things awkward between them, Diamant sets out to solve the problem. It will certainly take more than that to undo an entrenched militaristic culture, but Diamant is taking steps and putting himself forward as the one who will change that. He does so for the good of the people, and he takes responsibility when he figures out that it's his fault that Celine has been in a rough spot. I see a similar attitude in his attempts to help Fram with her studying and their discussion about Brodia's fraught history of conflict. I find his commitment to peace reassuring, and it fits with his true, honorable spirit, a trait that will certainly help Brodia in the long run. As a unit, Diamant is really good, or so I'm told. He actually struggled in my playthrough with him, but I'm sure that was just an anomaly. Diamant comes in with good strength, dexterity, and speed, but his most notable asset is his 9 build, which is the highest of any character by the time he is recruited. Diamant is therefore a prime candidate for heavy weapons, hence why a lot of people give him Ike as an emblem ring. He may even get better in that department, as he is tied for the second highest build growth in the army. As for other growths, you'll see good strength and defense with good chance of speed as well, all of which makes Diamant a prime front-of-line candidate. I think strength and speed is where my Diamant fell short, but others I've watched playing have made Diamant an absolute beast, capable of holding off legions of foes with ease. He may not be flawless, but he is a damn good unit. Pretty good looking as well. He just lost out on the pack ring, though, to my #1 favorite. If you asked me before I played Engage who I thought my favorite character in the cast would be, I definitely wouldn't have guessed this character. However, upon actually meeting them in-game, it took very little time for my attitude to change, as the initial meeting with Yunaka is one of the best introductions of any of the characters. Yunaka is one of only 2 characters who is not either a royal or a retainer to a royal in the entire game, with the other being Seedal. That already puts her in a unique category in Engage, but even beyond that, Yunaka feels so distinct from the rest of the cast in a purposeful and wonderful way. Our introduction to Yunaka is emblematic of her character. We see her putting on her face and act before our main party arrives. Then we have the overly cheerful personality with Zappy, Haya Papaya, and Holy Broccoli. The brief slip-up with Killer's Eyes versus Killer Eyes, and then the end of the chapter when Yunaka comes clean and is invited to join the army. Her reaction to them trusting her, even after her admitting her crimes, is amazing and exactly in keeping with her being seriously out of place in the Engaged cast. Her backstory as an assassin who has dealt with the shadier elements of the continents, survived it, and is now trying to move on from that past is great. It's not entirely unique, as we shall see with Zelkov, but it is a far cry from the rest of the cast. Yunaka has seen the worst, has lived and breathed it, and so it makes total sense she would feel out of place in this community of people who actually like and trust each other. She is absolutely nonplussed with some people, but those few people who are like her are able to reveal some of her backstory and full personality. I say full personality because I don't think the affect that she puts on is false. She does seem to enjoy her weird phrases and acting. It's just not her full personality. I'll start then by talking about the few people who are suspicious of Yunaka and how she works around and deals with her past. This comes up mainly in her supports with Etier, Citrine, Zelkov, and Panette. Etier, who is constantly looking at people's physiques, is able to inadvertently discover Yunaka's tough past in history just by examining how she has built up muscle. Instead of prodding her about it though, Etier allows Yunaka to take her time and reveal what she is willing to, and instead focuses on providing happy, positive memories and experiences for her now. Panette similarly manages to guess that Yunaka is hiding stuff because of Panette's own efforts to hide her past. Do not bluff a bluffer, indeed. Through their conversations, Yunaka and Panette are able to find more similarities in their backgrounds and their ruthless demeanor when push comes to shove. Unlike Etier, Citrine does not stumble into knowing about Yunaka's bad past. She is immediately suspicious of Yunaka's intentions about the Brodian Assembly and gets straight to the point in their support. Despite this, Citrine's willingness to listen is what allows Yunaka to still move forward in spite of the confrontation. This support is where we learn the most about her past, about her being abandoned, about her training as an assassin, about her final job, and her resolve to leave that life in the past. However, in spite of all her desire to leave her past behind, Yunaka can't forget it, and that's why she's trying to set up a fund so kids don't have to go through the same thing she does. As hard as the world has been on Yunaka, she never developed the same hardness, and having heard all this, Citrine is more than happy to help Yunaka as much as she can. Yunaka and Zelkov regard each other as only those well accomplished in the same profession can. They may not wish to discuss their past with each other, but who else could possibly understand? Yunaka can help Zelkov by pointing out the unconscious ways that he is still behaving like an assassin. Zelkov can in turn help Yunaka gain perspective and distance by having a candid conversation about their past and their plans for the future. Others may notice that Yunaka doesn't want to talk about her past or other details about her life, but instead of pressing her on it, most of them give her space to feel comfortable and come to them. Louis especially is dedicated to making a safe space for Yunaka to just feel at home. He does most of the talking, he brews tea to help everyone relax. It's a perfect environment for her not to have to put on a facade and just sit, drink tea, and listen. Sometimes that's exactly what Yunaka could use instead of being forced into situations beyond her comfort level, like what happens in her supports with Fogado. Uncomfortable situations do lead to growth though, and Fogado, with his good nature, is very understanding in trying to help Yunaka to that point. Fogado helps Yunaka see a new side of the people she interacts with and leads to her resolution to continue working on being okay in crowded spaces and trusting people. One of the other notable things about Yunaka is her excellent impressions of other people. While it's amusing to see that in the main story and in her support with Goldmary, it turns into an opportunity when Celine arrives. He immediately recognizes her talent and persuades her to give acting and performing a chance. He builds her up and guides her through every insecurity and uncertainty and gives Yunaka a path in life not built on violence. The army is helpful to Yunaka moving past her trauma, but what does she do afterwards? That's where Celine comes in with an answer, and as we see in the credits, that's exactly what Yunaka goes on to do. Her strongest points of support in the army, though, are Alfred and Alir. In Alfred's supports, he shows unconditional trust and support for Yunaka. No matter what she throws at him to convince him that she shouldn't be trusted, Alfred can't do it because he can see past it all. He can see her big heart, he can see her avoidance for what it is, fear, and he eats fear for breakfast. Sometimes that's an important person to have in your corner. Someone who may not understand where exactly you're coming from, but supports and trusts you anyways. Then we have Alir. Alir really likes to get to know people and so proceeds to try that with Yunaka, which leads to her lie about being a mercenary, which she almost immediately comes clean about. She doesn't want to lie, she's just trying to get by in this unfamiliar environment and slips back into old habits. Alir's reaction to this is the best it can be, offering a person to come to if Yunaka needs to talk about things. but never pressuring her to reveal more than she can. Yunaka has left her old life as Larimar behind, but that history is still part of her, and she shares it when necessary, and she feels she can trust the people around her. All this personality, coupled with the incredible vocal performance of Laura Post. Seriously, those transitions between Yunaka's zappy voice and her assassin voice are impeccable. Not to mention all the impressions, made Yunaka a standout character. She feels in some ways out of place in the Engage cast, but I think that enhances her character because that's exactly how she seems to feel as well in the actual story. She's trying to fit in with her wild outfit and catchphrases, but ultimately she is a hardened warrior with a dark, complicated backstory. She can't shrug that off, but she wants to be able to trust and show love and gratitude to those around her, and I love her for it. As our resident thief, it's unsurprising that dexterity and speed are Yunaka's calling cards. Yunaka herself also has quite good resistance growths and even decent strength growth, which didn't show during my playthrough with her. Her ability to dodge makes her an okay long-range dodge tank, plus her decent resistance factors in against mages if they're sent against her. Yunaka has some utility enhanced if you keep the Micaiah ring on her, but Corrin will likely be the best one overall. However, the comparison to Zelkov or later on to Merrin doesn't come out with Yunaka looking the best for dagger units. She is more than viable and is better than both Zelkov and Merrin against mages, but she's nowhere near the best unit out there. Lucky for her though, she is my favorite Fire Emblem Engage character, so there's no way I'm leaving her off my team. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite Fire Emblem Engage characters. There are plenty that I really enjoyed that I didn't get to talk about, and I'm especially sad to not have the opportunity to gush about the amazing himbo that is Boucheron. And that's the tough decisions you gotta make to make a list like this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments who your favorite characters in Fire Emblem Engage are, and as you head down there, if you would give the video a like, I would greatly appreciate it. If you are not already, please do consider subscribing as well, and I hope to see you all in the next video. I'm already looking forward to the next Fire Emblem character countdown that I'll be doing. We'll just have to wait until that rumored FE4 remake comes to fruition. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and happy gaming.